everybody. It's Audra May, and this is our State of the School presentation. So it should last maybe 20 to 30 minutes. So please take the time to view it, listen to it, and if you have any questions on it, as always, you can always contact me. Let's talk real quickly about upcoming events. This may or may not be out in time for Hineni, but Hineni is our service project, all-school service project. That is Saturday, March 29th from 8 to 12. We already have about 230 people involved in that with 11 work sites. And so if you haven't signed up already, no big deal. Come on out and help us. You may not get a t-shirt, but we can always use the extra hands. All right, let's get into it. Our theme this year was Walk the Walk. And the verse is 1 John 1:7, which basically says that we walk in the light as Jesus is in the light so that we can have fellowship and relationship with one another. And so obviously that implies that we are walking as Jesus would walk. And so in order for us to do that and for us to make sure that our kids are doing that, there's a huge focus on biblical worldview and understanding a biblical worldview. And so we've just kind of infused ourselves in what does that really look like? And we'll talk more about that as we go on, but I just wanted to remind you of what our theme was because we kept that in mind with everything that we did this year. All right, so let's get started. We talked just a minute ago about Walk the Walk. Let's talk about some of the new positions that we had this year. Our ad in the upper school program was Coach Steve Svensson. He took on the Dean of Students role, and I think he's done a great job. We had our first ever day of spiritual renewal. We started it with just our 11th and 12th graders, and we got great feedback both from them and from parents. So we really think Steve is making an impact there. Lori Ivy, this was her first year, full year as the admissions director. She's done a great job. And then Alyssa Bosel is our communications and family engagement. You haven't seen it yet, but she has been diligently working on a new and updated website, so you should see that coming pretty soon. But Alyssa managed things like our 20th birthday party shindig, and aside from the wind, which she couldn't control, that was a really neat event. It was fun to see lots of former Legacy alumni out there. And then let's talk just a bit about the annual fund. We're so thankful and grateful for the money that you give to Legacy so that we can just make your child's experience here at Legacy a lot more fruitful. And so some of the things that we did were fencing. We're still working on that. We almost have our entire, school campus or school buildings, I should say, enclosed. We were able to purchase a security vehicle for our police officers so that they can get to and the front and back of the properties fairly quickly. We've got the bollards in front of the building, 64 elementary computers, lockers. Those have been a big hit. It's been fun to see kids hanging out and talking at the lockers. Cheer mats and a gym floor cover. So we covered a whole plethora of areas here at Legacy with the money that you gave through annual funding. So thank you so very much. And then the next thing we're going to cover very quickly is just we're going to review some of our standardized testing that is for our, all school, elementary through 11th and 12th grade. So on the screen right now, you should see, it'll say Iowa 2024. That's for our kindergarten through 7th grades. The green line that you're looking at there represents Legacy, so you can see that we're still well above the other two lines there. That orange line is South Central, so that's going to be your southern states along the now Gulf of Americas, your Texas, Louisiana, Florida, so that's how we compare with that region, all private schools in that area. And then you can see ACSI, which is all private schools in the country. That's the blue line and how we compare with them. So we're still looking good as it compares to other people in private Christian schooling. Now we're looking at math. On this chart again, Legacy is green. You can see again that we're still well above the South Central and all other ACSI Christian schools. Our students have always done well in math. I will just add that we are keeping our eye on the elementary grades, kinder through 4th grade. This is our second year with a new curriculum, and so got our eyes on that just to see how that plays out over the next few years. Okay, now let's move to our PSAT scores. These are for our 8th through 11th graders. You can see Legacy in green. We're still performing well above the national and state average. We are keeping our eye on Texas. In the past, they have been above the national average, but we have seen them continually, sort of drop below the national average. You can see they're almost equal there. Keeping our eyes on that. We are seeing some elements of that as students try to come into Legacy through their placement test. So we are aware that there are some issues there. Okay, let's move to the SAT scores. Keep in mind that these are generally going to be our 11th and current 12th graders. So right now we show that the average Legacy SAT score is 1182, and then you can see how that compares to Texas, which has sunk below the national average there on the SAT scores at 1013, and then the national average of 1058. We're going to move on to our top quartile, the top 25% of the class of 2025, so that's this year's graduating students. The top score was 1540, so pretty close to perfect. I think it was one or two questions that were missed there. But the average in our top 25% was 1437, so just some real smarties here at Legacy doing really well on their SAT and PSAT scores. Okay, let's talk individually by grade levels. We'll do elementary first. So we'll talk a little bit about what has been accomplished this past year, and then what you can be looking forward to as we move on. First and foremost, I mentioned that we were really dialing in on our biblical worldview. What does that look like? Obviously, it looks different in elementary than it will in middle and high school. We did a lot of spiritual biblical professional development, if you will. We started in elementary with the formation of a spiritual formation team, and their sole purpose is to keep an eye on what ways and in what areas can we find to implement God's word into what we're teaching. As part of that team, they traveled to Washington, D.C. and other areas where they had professional development training with the Herzog Foundation, which is a distinctly Christian foundation. They bring in speakers from all over the United States who've published books and things like that. Some of the things that our elementary teachers were a part of was Answers in Genesis, Impact of the Bible, and Apologetics. And I believe every teacher in elementary got to go to one of these professional development seminars. Then, as the second semester started, all of our teaching staff and our principals attended a summit at the Woodlands Christian Academy where Summit Ministries was brought in. And it was, again, distinctly over a biblical worldview. What does that look like, and how do we implement it? So we've just kind of infused ourselves with how do we do a better job of that. Also in elementary, we added chapels in the classroom, along with our Bible program, and in addition to the quarterly chapels that we already have. So really working hard to just make sure that we're searing the Word of God into our students, especially while they're young. One of the things that I've loved seeing this year as I walk about the campus is our outdoor science class. There are all kinds of things going on out there. We have plants growing, we have experiments in progress, and it's been really fun to see the kids get out there and get their hands dirty, and really just see in real time how a little seed can transform into this big plant with buds and fruits and all those things. So it's really been good hands-on experience for those little guys. We also piloted a new accommodations program where we're able to help with some slight accommodations for those children who may have some learning differences. Right now we only have a few kids, and I think we have the ability to maybe only manage a few kids, but that program is there. And we're keeping an eye on, is this helping? Are there better ways for us to do that, and so forth? But that is there, new this year. We are currently reviewing, as we do every year, a piece of our curriculum. And this year we have been reviewing our history program, our history curriculum, and also in elementary, the Bible curriculum as well. And then, again, we mentioned the annual fund. We purchased 64 Chromebooks for our 3rd and 4th graders. So thank you very much, again, for contributing to that. Okay, let's talk about middle school and high school and what we've done there. Again, along the same lines that middle school and high school teachers have also been part of the Herzog Foundation professional development trainings. They've been on multiple trips to that, leadership development, apologetics, and different subject topics like that. And they were also in attendance at the Summit Ministries Worldview Summit here in the second semester. Some of the things that we've done successfully is kudos to Amanda Jones. She's done very well as implementing fifth grade into middle school. Fifth grade has kind of bounced back and forth between elementary and middle school. It's just a tough age. They're still young, but also they're not elementary. So Amanda did a really good job of bringing them, folding them back into the middle school program, making sure that they were able to do some of the athletic things, and then implementing some new classes for them as well. Some of the new classes for middle school were games and logic, which is like a computer programming type class, and also a photography class. And if you don't believe those kids are taking pictures, just go check out Smug Mug. All kinds of interesting stuff there from our photography class. And then in high school, some of the classes we added were personal finance and a new dual credit biology class. And then on the docket for next year, we're going to be adding an intro design class and then debate club. We actually had a presidential debate here before the actual presidential debate, where different students drew the different parties and then debated from the perspective of those parties. It was very interesting and very well done. So we would like to include that in our program offerings for next year. Our accommodations program here in middle school and high school is just almost full. We are helping about 55 different students through that service, and so just want you to know that we do offer some of those things and that that program is growing and expanding, and so we're kind of keeping our eye on how that happens. We are reviewing our history curriculum also in middle school and high school. And then the big celebration, again, were the lockers and sort of storage spaces for our middle school and high school students. Wanted to add real quickly robotics. As you know, it's a very successful and growing program. I mean, we're now having to almost treat it as an athletic team where you're trying out and competing for positions in the classrooms because it's so popular. But this year, our high school robotics team, I believe there's 45 students. They are training and preparing to go back to the TAP state meet next week. That's April 5th, I believe. Last year, they finished as TAP's runners-up. So I know they've got their eye on a state title. So be in prayer for that. And then we are adding or piloting a program for middle school. Now, this is for next year where as you know, in elementary, we try to keep the students on level in math because that math is fairly complicated. It's already rigorous. And sometimes our students blossom early or bloom late, and we need to make a course correction on what level of math they're in. We don't want to take away the opportunity to work a level ahead in math. And so in middle school now, we'll be offering an opportunity in sixth grade where the coursework will prepare them to take Algebra 1 their eighth grade year, which is a high school credit in the eighth grade. We'll have a lot more information coming out about that before the end of the school year, but just keep your eyes open for that. Also want to add that we'll be adding a dean of curriculum and instruction for middle and high school. Currently that job is done by one person, Jen Kennedy. We're big enough now with 730 some odd students that needs to be split. And so Barb Gubb is going to take on that role for middle school and high school. We are also going to add, and way overdue for this, another advisor, high school advisor, so that Ms. Rush is not overseeing, 200 and some odd students. So this person will come in and mainly work with our 9th and 10th graders, but we are going to get Mrs. Rush some help. And then we're also looking at bringing in someone to help us plan student events. There are so many of them, and a lot of times they take up more time of our admin staff than we really need to give them. And so we're going to bring someone in to help us take on planning that and maybe even coordinate some of our family volunteers. And then lastly, we're going to be adding some help to our IT group. Albert's been doing a great job, but what he needs most is like a help desk. And so we'd like to bring in someone part-time / hourly to just help with the little things like, hit Control-Alt-Delete, that kind of thing. So we are looking at adding additional personnel there for IT. Okay, let's announce our valedictorian for high school. This year's valedictorian is Marlo Grace Leahy. Marlo Grace will be attending Texas A&M University, and she is going to pursue a major in public health with a track towards speech pathology. And then our salutatorian is Jaden Howe. She's going to be attending the University of Texas, and she's studying biology on a pre-med track. And then separately, we would like to congratulate Miss Janie Liker. She is a National Merit finalist. And so Janie will be attending Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, that's I believe in Indiana, where she is going to be studying mathematics, biomathematics, I should say, and she is going to be participating on their swim team. So she is going to continue to be a student athlete while in college. Speaking of graduation, we love to invite you guys out to our high school commencement ceremony. It is such a really neat and personal event, so we really encourage you to come, especially if you've had a part in the lives of any of our seniors that are graduating. That event is May 16th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it is not here, it is on the campus of Faith Bible Church, just down a Research Forest from us. So come out, show your support for our graduates. I believe we have 66 this year. That would be the largest number of graduates. So please come out and cheer them on and wish them well. All right, some things coming up and also some successes. We're going to start with fine arts. We had a great How I Became a Pirate program. That was the first program that happened this year. The Emeralds, who are a fairly new program, I believe they're in their third season, competed for the first time here at TAPS. And there were several girls that took away some individual accolades and awards. So that program is just continuing to grow. Coach Ray is doing a really good job with those girls. Also, we are adding a drum line. It is time for us to get a drum line out there on the football field. We're hoping that having a drum line eventually spurs into a band of some sort. And so if you are a middle school student, or even a high school student at this point, but if you're a middle school specifically student and you are interested in the drum line and keeping a beat, you can keep a beat, sign up, give us a call. See the information in the weekly email, but we're very serious about starting this program. And then also, if you haven't already, Katie and her husband Brian have done a great job with a foil podcast. It is not just about the foil or theater program. She has incorporated a lot of the early days at Legacy, so you can hear some of the things that Legacy went through before it got here, the number of places that it has been. Katie's program is in its 10th year, Legacy's program is in its 20th, and there's just some really interesting things that kind of come together and kind of parallel each other about how the programs got started. But you also have the ability to record a memory of your own and forward it to Katie, and they're sort of housing those things, almost like a time capsule, if you will, so that we can go back and hear them later. If you haven't listened to that podcast, give it a listen. You can go back through some past weekly emails and find the link there. I've also sent out an email with the link on it, but it's really interesting, and I think it's always good for us to know where we came from so that we know where we're going. So give that a listen if you haven't already. And then don't forget that Newsies is coming out in the next 2 weeks. That is Newsies Junior. It will be at Concordia, and that is April the 11th through the 13th. And I believe there are still some tickets left, but those go pretty quickly. So be sure that you sign up and go see that. Okay, let's move into athletics. We've had a lot of athletic wins, if you will, this year. First of all, just the implementation of the strength and conditioning program. We've hired a strength and conditioning coach, Coach Cruz, and he's really done a great job. The kids are enjoying having their own space to work out. If you haven't been and viewed the weight room, you should go take a look. It's just a really neat place, and I think it has, it brings an air of competition just among our own kids, but I know it makes them feel good that they can get in there and work out right here on our property. We haven't always been able to do that, so kudos to Coach Laria for getting that built, and then to Coach Cruz for running that program. We also have had the addition of some middle school athletic classes. We actually had to split those two classes in two, ones that were in season and ones that were off season, and to my knowledge, that has gone very smoothly. Coach Loria added an athletic discipleship class, which we do every Wednesday, and I know that athletes have really enjoyed coming together and just discussing, what's going on in the culture, how then should we live. Those have been just some really good opportunities to come together as an athletic group, and I think that's gone over really well. Something else that we have is a new gym floor. That was added late last year, but it was great. I can just tell you, as the girls coach, we loved showing off the new floor, and it was perfect timing for such a great season. But that was a huge undertaking, and it looks fantastic. So on to some accolades. Our cross-country girls who do well every year brought home another state championship. Our volleyball girls had a historic run. This is the furthest they've ever gotten, and they were able to compete in the state semifinals. Our basketball girls made it all the way to the state championship game. We came up a little short, but the girls were state runners up this year. And then we also had some swim state champions. Janie Liker, who we mentioned earlier, was state champion in the 100-yard fly. And then there were a group of girls that were successful in the 200-yard relay. So congratulations to those gals. They have a banner up in the gym already. And then Coach Loria is actively interviewing and looking for a new head football coach. We think we're pretty close. He's narrowed it down to a couple of candidates, but that announcement should be coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Okay, our final thing as we move into closing out this year, you're probably well aware that we had a survey that went out not too long ago. It's taken us some time to really go through the details. It's not a survey that we've done before. Some of the way that it measured things was just complicated, and it's just been a lot of work to go through. But I want to give you the sort of top line things that we learned from you guys. First of all, you are very satisfied with our academics. You feel like we're doing that well. No complaints about that there, except that sometimes they're too hard. And to that we say, well done. Way to go, principals. Also to our principals, you guys seem to be happy with them. You think that they're doing a good job as well. So principals and academics, all thumbs up. You guys think that our facilities have improved, that we keep them nice and clean, that they're appropriate for what we have here. So you were very complimentary about that, and also about the technology use here at Legacy. Not always happy about, the internet, or the interwebs as we joke about them here, but you do like the way that we've incorporated technology into the curriculum. Lots of high marks for safety and security. I think you agree with us that we're doing a good job in trying to keep the schools safe. It still remains a high level of importance. We're thankful for that security team who's constantly sort of updating us on ways that we can be safer, things to look out for, and that kind of thing. So you gave us a thumbs up for that. You all very much love the university model, very complimentary about the time that you got to spend with your children, both at school and at home. Just really complimentary and thankful about what that program has afforded many of you. And then lots of thumbs up for performing in fine arts. You're happy with cheer, with drill team, with foil, and with the new additions, orchestra and things like that, with the new additions that are coming up. We got a lot of nods on that. Things you'd like us to keep working on: high school electives, more variety, and we are looking into that. We are looking into some additional apologetics courses. We've been talking with Lone Star about partnering in things like health occupations and things like that. Our issue, as always, is space. Where do we put it? There just really aren't any available classrooms, so we're trying to be creative about how we can incorporate some of those things, even with a lack of classroom space. So we're working on that. Worldview and discipline. This was one of those things that was hard, or I should say disciplines, that was kind of hard to kind of pinpoint what was trying to be said, but mainly that you want us to look at not just worldview, but the disciplines on how those apply. How do we use that worldview? How is the worldview demonstrated? Have we taught our students how to make their worldview applicable? Have we taught them disciplines of studying the Bible, studying Scripture, and how to apply that? So it's kind of a combination of, can we do this better? And you should know that that is our main focus. I know we are a school, but our main focus is ensuring that our students know what they believe and know why they believe what they believe. So we're definitely keeping our eye on that. And then there were some comments about just making sure that our culture and character stayed strong as the school continued to get bigger. Again, that's something that we, try to focus on. It is if you've got a little target and it's aim small, miss small, that's in our little target. So just know that we're keeping our eyes on that. And then some of the concerns that you had, some of it had to do with, I think, my messaging last year as we're talking about growth. I think I made some comments last year that we were kind of slowing down and looking at our culture and making sure that we had a grip on it before we grew too much. And I think that, and then we wound up opening up admissions again after it had been closed. And I think there were some of you that really took issue with that. So noted that did not make some of you happy. But I do feel like we need to talk a little bit about growth and what that looks like at Legacy. Obviously, we are trying to grow, but it is not our focus. Right now, we have about 730 students. The school feels pretty full, but there are still some open seats. And so as long as there are open seats, then we encourage other families to come and join us and be in those seats, right? Our job my job is to service as many people as we can service. I mean, I was so blessed by this model. I know many of you have been too. And I just feel like it's our job to let other people be blessed by it as well. So growth-wise, maximum number of students here in the whole property, I don't know, we could probably fit 1,000 students in, but that's not our goal. We're pretty happy where we are right now. If we filled every seat and we kept every teacher-student ratio where it's supposed to be, we'd have a little over 800 and some odd students or so. So really that's all we can do. And I'll talk about that here in just a minute. But just want to give you the assurance that our minds are always on that little circle of what's our mission. Everything that should be within that mission is there, and anything that shouldn't be, it's our job to keep it out. So just a reassurance that the mission that we started with is still the mission. It hasn't changed. I do want to talk a little bit about our culture real quickly because I think it's important for you to understand how our admissions process happens, because some of the comments were that we're just quote unquote, letting anybody in. We are in the blessed and fortunate position that we don't have to let anybody in. We get to judge who gets to come in. We get to consider on and pray about who gets to be here. It's such a wonderful place to be where you can pick and choose, and that is literally what we're doing. Most of the people that come to our informational meetings have been recommended by you, our families, and so that's step number one. That says a lot about what you feel about our culture. In our informational meetings, I spend a lot of time saying our culture is important, and that's why you have to go through this vetting process. It takes several weeks to get that done, and we look at everything from pastor recommendation to past, teacher and principal recommendations. But one of the things that we get to do now is we have seasons, if you will, of admissions. If you apply in February, we're going to hold those applications until March. And so if we have let's say we have 8 eighth grade applications and we have 10 students, we get to sit and talk about those 10 students and say, out of this 10, this person is the best, this person is second, this person is third. So it's not first come, first serve. It is, let us review what we have and let us choose the best students using our standards, just like you would at a college or a university. And the people involved in those decisions are the people that are going to be directly affected by that: teachers, department heads, principals. So they have skin in the game, if you will, in selecting the kinds of students that we're bringing in. So I just wanted to make you aware of how the process works. There were multiple comments about how we vet people and things like that, and really some inaccurate comments about the kinds of, people with records, that have been expelled. There's nobody here that has a record that we know of. So anyway, we just want you to understand that it is important to us to make sure that the kids that are coming in and the families that are coming in are a good fit. And we're in a wonderful place right now where we don't have to take anybody, everybody, whatever. We can just fill the seats that are there and choose the very best candidates. And so just rest assured that is what we're working on. Other things that concerned you were tuition, just the fact that it's going up, and I'm just here to tell you, we don't know a way around that. We're actually required to raise tuition through our accrediting agencies and our national organization. It's just healthy, strategic financial policies. We do our very best not to raise them by much, but life, cost of living goes up every year, and so we have to do the same thing to make sure that we're able to pay our teachers a wage where they can remain here. And then your other concerns were athletics, just asking for better communication about events, and I think some of you said it felt last minute. You want them to be more approachable. And the biggest thing was multiple middle school teams. This year we culled some of our teams a little bit, just mainly because of facility use and lack of coaching, or coaches, I should say. We're working on that. We heard you. We're gonna make some changes there, so thank you for your feedback on that. Okay, coming up in 2025, and we are wrapping this up now, let's talk very quickly about school choice. I have had several emails from you guys. I'm just shaking my head at this. I gotta say, I don't have a good feeling about it. It doesn't feel like it's going to pass again. We were guaranteed 2 years ago, guaranteed this is passing, and it didn't. And so I do give Greg Abbott kudos that he continues to push this forward, but here's the update. In late February, it was passed from the Texas House to the Texas Senate. It is now called HB 3. They are still talking about it, debating about it. The things where heads are butting is over eligibility, household income kind of thing. That has gone up. So I think it was 125 to start with, and now I believe it's at 160,000 for a household income. That makes you eligible. One of the other great things is that even if you're already at a private school, you're still eligible, and so the other side doesn't like that. They're still talking about where do disabilities fall? Do they come first, or are they just weighing everybody based on household first? And then spending. Currently there is $1 billion set aside to serve 80,000 students. So when you think about, there are, I think, 5 billion or 5 million students in the state of Texas. Really, this is only serving about 80,000, but my understanding is that that is the first wave. So keep your eyes on that. I don't think much will change for us. Our standards will not change. Doesn't matter to us where the money comes from, whether it's from the state or from our families. We'll vet them just the same. Nobody steps to the front of the line. So we don't really feel like it will have anything to do one way or the other with the kinds of students that we're receiving at Legacy. And then enrollment update. Okay, I'm gonna have to just read this because there's a lot here. Trust me, we're wrapping up. Our current enrollment is 734, and we now have about 80 students that are still in the admissions pipeline, so we're still working through about 80 students. The following grades are closed: pre-K, kinder, 7th, 8th, 9th, Monday, Wednesday, 4th grade, and 10th is on its way to being closed. So as you can see, even if we wanted to, we couldn't add many more people. We have very few grade levels that still have open spots. Our current retention rate this year, and this is another thing that prevents new students from coming in, but it's fantastic. Our retention rate is almost 96% for this upcoming year. So you guys seem to be pretty happy here, and we're glad to keep you. What's new this year is that we have 25 students, and I believe that is growing, on a waiting list. So we have a whole herd of people that have applied, but we just don't have a spot for. So we just want you to know that there are caps. We're not just letting a whole bunch of people in. There are people on wait lists. We just had an information meeting in March, and so those students are not even listed here, but there were 35 additional students in that meeting. And so because of that, we are canceling our April information meeting. So please make note of that if you have friends. We're gonna take people on an individual basis now. We have so many classes that are closed, so many grade levels that are closed. We felt that this was the best way to do it. We didn't wanna waste anyone's time bringing them to a meeting and then saying, oh, by the way, we don't have a spot for you. So make sure that you're letting people know that that is closed. And then finally, the Performing Arts Center is coming soon. We are so excited about this. It looks like right now that trailers and fencing will be on the property about mid-April, and then we are looking to break ground end of April, 1st of May. So that's a huge yay, and we're excited to be able to add another facility to the Legacy campus. So, all right, I think I have covered everything. Thank you again for listening and paying attention. As always, if I misspoke on something or something I said has you curious, feel free to email me directly and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you and see you soon.